In the summer of 1972, on the campus of the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, an extraordinary thing happened. The Flying Raviolis, then the world's foremost acrobatic ensemble, gave a legendary performance on the lawn of Connor Dormitory. There was one Valdez with brothers Chase, Sanborn, and the mute brute Sanka, and their sensuous sister Ethel. For contractual reasons, no recordings were permitted of the performance, and in the decades that followed, scholars lamented the fact that this watershed cultural event was essentially undocumented. That is, until last year, when a home movie depicting the entire performance was discovered in the attic of Rex Dalton. Naturally, the discovery of the rare footage set off a search to see if any of these remarkable acrobats are still alive, and, if found, would tell the real story behind the legend.
Well, it's been quite a few years, but it was truly one of the most significant things that I had the privilege of being part of back when I was a young man.
Na 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 na. Na 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 na.
The Flying Raviolis have become a source of great debate in academia, sort of like the lost city of Atlantis. Now, 50 years after the first sighting, 4 of the 5 raviolis have been found and interviewed.
There were only 3 network news channels in those days, and the country was experiencing great unrest with the war and polyester but every
Don't forget Banlon.
Who could peak that? But every news show that you saw generated from New York, Washington, or LA. They had no idea how cutting edge the raviolis were and the effect we would have on a Southern crowd that was now just beginning to feel that kind of social anxiety.
For a brief few shining moments, it was like Chapel Hill and, dare I say, Burlington, North Carolina, was right there in the center of the cultural universe with the Flying Raviolis.
It never made the news programs, but at the very end of our performance, people were so excited that they got up and they didn't know what to do. And I believe that is the very first instance of the student body of the University of North Carolina storming Franklin Street. Really because of the ravioli effect. I think they probably called it the ravioli effect at the time. But they started fires in the middle of Franklin Street, and they turned over cars, and if I'm not mistaken, that may have been one of the early instances of a mass streak. They took off their clothes and they ran.
I was part of the mass streak, but not as a member of the Flying Raviolis. I did it on my own. You know, to say that I did it as an individual outside the context of the Flying Raviolis is really, I think, not strictly accurate. Once you're a member of the Flying Raviolis, you're recognized as such for the rest of your life. It's sort of like Paul McCartney will never be able to be anything other than a member of Wings.
It's my passion, you understand. And it really began back there in Chapel Hill in those days when I was looking for a way to make my mark, a way to tell the world that I'm here. And then came the Flying Raviolis. They're a magnificent young acrobatic group. They could do things that defied imagination.
Okay, we're talking with Ruby Santos, Ethel's mother, and asking her what was Ethel like as a little girl?
Ethel was the most precious little girl I ever had. Had two boys, and here she come along. She couldn't have been more precious than any little girl could be.
Well, I guess it was helpful that she didn't know how to speak.
Oh yes, very helpful.
Well, was she able to help you out around the house with
Oh,
those
yeah.
boys?
Oh yeah.
Well, talk about when she ran off.
Well, she surprised us all. All of a sudden, she was gone. She was only 14 years old.
Did she leave a note?
Yes.
What did the note say?
Bye. See you later.
Well, when was the next time you heard of her?
A week later,
Where was she then?
Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Kalamazoo,
I
Michigan?
think. Yeah.
Wow, she did move around, didn't
Yes,
she?
she did.
Well, do you remember the name of the group that she got hooked up with?
Oh, just a minute. Some raviolis.
The Raviolis?
Yeah.
What kind of group was that?
I don't know what kind it was, but I was mad at them taking her away.
Well, did you ever hear from her again after that?
Yeah.
Did she ever come home?
Yeah. About a month later.
About a month later?
Yeah.
Was she ever the same?
No.
Oh my. So this is it?
After all these years.
I can't believe
Ethel.
Oh my gosh.
Can't believe we found her.
Well,
I'm worried that perhaps she hasn't held up as well as we have. Okay. Are you ready?
Ring the doorbell. Are you sure this is where she lives?
Yeah. Ethel!
I can't even believe it.
Can't believe it's you.
How many years has it been?
Let me feel you.
Believe it. Where have you been the last 40 years? Oh, where have you been? Mi hermanos.
What were you making?
I was making tortillas.
Tortillas?
Yeah,
you've learned to speak.
I have. Cochlear implant. Yeah. See?
Maybe come in.
Enter. I just cannot believe it. What brought you to Kalamazoo?
We've been searching for so long.
For me?
Yes.
You
You can tell her about the documentary.
The films have been recovered. And a documentary is being produced
No.
about the raviolis.
No.
Yes.
I am beyond excited.
The entire world is excited.
Oh, may I see some of it?
Actually, we are waiting for a computer
That works.
that works. Yeah.
What are you wearing?
Well, you know, this is my favorite costume of all. I have many. They all look the same. But it is my favorite color, don't you think? It's a good color for me. Yes. So I cannot believe that I see my brothers again. And he recognized me.
Yes, we haven't been able to locate Chase.
Chase. Little skinny guy.
Yeah. We think he's in the CIA.
Doing very important work.
He was a master of disguise, and many speculated he was in national intelligence even as a ravioli.
Well, this has made my day.
Had she been watching your movies or television programs? Ed Sullivan, perhaps?
I'm glad you brought that up because we actually were never on the Ed Sullivan Show. We were booked on the Ed Sullivan Show, but we had a slight dispute because Wild Abdul, while he was able to work around the wooden animals on the merry-go-round, the sight of Topo Gigio completely freaked him out. And Wild Abdul would not be in the same building with Topo Gigio, and Ed Sullivan apparently had a choice between us and the mouse. And so we had to leave New York and come south.
But back to Ethel. She was as close to an acrobatic savant as I think we'd ever encountered. She intuited acrobatics in a natural, organic sort of way that astounded the critics.
Sanka. Since the Flying Raviolis were formed, it's probably been 38 years since you performed with them. Have you got any reflections on the raviolis, on where your life has come, where it would have gone without them?
It was a transformative time for me. I wanted to kill all the members, and I tried to, but they used weapons to control me and turned it into a show. But I learned not to kill. It's probably one of the greatest lessons of my life.
Okay. Have you killed anybody in the 40 years since then? We had been on the road for a short period of time, just refining our act, and we were just amazed at how quickly we caught on. And we decided...
Was this in the United States?
It was primarily in the Chicago, the Northwest area. We were shooting for Broadway, we were shooting for Ed Sullivan, but we hadn't gotten there yet. But things were moving at a really rapid pace, and we decided, wouldn't it be really cool if we booked ourselves into Burlington at their biggest auditorium, which was Walter Williams High School.
Well, we actually were polished performers before we made our appearance on the stage at Walter Williams High School. I think back so far as the Billy Graham Charlotte Crusade.
Oh, yeah.
Where we actually stole the show from George Beverly Shea with tricks that some felt were unchristian, but others thought really shed new light on the scriptures.
So the Brightwood's right up here on the right?
It was. God, they put a bunch of houses and stuff up here now.
So when we were touring with the Raviolis, we ate here one time.
Yeah, we had just played in Burlington.
It became kind of famous that we ate here.
Look at that.
All right,
Can you see it?
Are they still
I don't know.
open?
Lord. They got a flag flying.
Right, cool. I love the owner of this place. Maybe he's still here. Go ahead and pull up here and let's see if anybody's here.
He was old 50 years ago. You ready?
Oh man. Hey, this has been a long time, hasn't it?
I cannot believe it.
So are they still open, the old Brightwood?
I don't know.
So,
Got a light on over there.
okay. Well, we ate here when?
Right here. Look at this.
Oh my gosh!
Check it out.
I don't believe it. Look at this.
Golly.
Wow.
I wonder where they got that picture of Ethel.
I don't know, gosh.
Man, do you remember when we ate here? I mean, the owner was so excited. He said, we were the biggest thing that's ever been in this place since Elvis Presley. That Elvis Presley ate here in 1957, and they still got a plaque over the booth.
Wow.
But apparently we're number 2.
I remember now. You can see it on the film. They were in Chapel Hill, and there was a big crowd there. So I was able to ensconce myself on one side, just out of view, because I didn't want the subjects to know they're being filmed by you. I wanted a natural performance. And then, of course, I was afraid they might hit me up for royalties. So, well.
It was a time of great transition in the country. You've got to remember that the Flying Raviolis performance that resulted in the film that's really the subject of this documentary, this was 2 months before the Watergate break-in. And there's been a lot of scholarly thought that perhaps the Raviolis performance precipitated what soon became a constitutional crisis. It's interesting to speculate what the true cultural significance of that performance was. There's so many things that that seem to have resulted from it. I'm thinking about leisure suits and Tony Orlando and Dawn.
Not Dawn.
Just
No, Tony, but not Dawn.
well, I guess just Tony, but there were so many things that you can trace right back to the Raviolis, and it is kind of remarkable that all of this happened really in the absence of any significant photographic or video record. All we really have is this movie and the oral history that surrounds it.
And so I picked up my my Bell and Howell Super 8 camera. It was my trusted companion for a number of years. I hadn't used it in years, but I went back up to my attic to see if I could find it. I knew I had stored it away somewhere, and lo and behold, when I found the camera, there too were the film canisters, the Super 8 film that I had taken of the Flying Raviolis.
The Flying Raviolis are believed to be the only international troupe that have adopted the pasta theme.
Tell us a little bit about Sanka. Is it true you had to use live ammunition in shows to control him?
Only once. Only once. He may have seemed like a brute animal, but he learned very quickly from the one time we did use live ammunition. I believe it was the time that we came through Walter Williams High School in Burlington, and at the rehearsal before the show, he had never been so out of control.
His training was strictly Pavlovian. He responded mainly to positive reinforcement in the form of treats, but occasionally it was necessary to get his attention with something of a negative character, such as a gunshot.
Well, that day, the day before the performance, when, we couldn't even get him out of his cage, and I think I shot him. It was just a .22, but I think I shot him in the...
You had a permit for it.
Of course I did. And I shot him in the calf, and immediately he was like eating out of my hand. It was that sort of thing that he responded to, like you said, that Pavrovsky. It worked miracles, and we had to take him to the emergency room, and he performed. I don't think anybody really remembers this, but he performed the entire show at Walter Williams with a cast from his hip to his ankle. How he did that, I'll never know. He was almost superhuman in his strength.
It was one of the most inspiring performances this observer has ever seen.
Yeah. But we never used live ammunition again. Never had to. I got the stuff.
All right. So, my grandpa built this bench. You know, I grew up, of course, in Moldavia. Well, you know that. Mountains of Moldavia. And I'm so tickled that you're willing to go back with me to visit my home. Let's do it.
It's a beautiful country.
My childhood home is right around this bend. I don't think anyone's been back in here in years. I don't know. It's not much further, maybe another 2 miles.
I didn't need to eat the hot dog too.
Oh boy. Okay. You can see my room. It hasn't changed much at all. Here's my desk. This is my desk where I used to do my schoolwork.
Did you go to school?
No. Oh. Sometimes it was my bed. Sleep out under the stars. Oh. Can you help turn me over?
Well, there were always concerns about decency when the Raviolis performed, and it was not uncommon for our performances to be monitored by the League of Women Voters, the Republican Party.
The moral majority went after us.
Hard.
Ooh. They showed up, though. They showed up and they paid for their tickets.
And they were entertained, I would have to say. Even when there were threats of arrest and other recriminations, I think at bottom they really got off on what we were doing. The Raviolis were, if they were about anything, it was the First Amendment. This was self-expression. This was political expression at its core. And for that reason, I think the vigilantes on the far right were never truly successful in shutting us down.
This is the First Amendment of First Amendment?
Yeah, I don't know what it is exactly, but it was the First Amendment to it.
Okay.
The heart of the magnificent performance of the Flying Raviolis was a particular maneuver called the Magnificent Swan. This is when Ethel, the jewel of the crown of this troupe, would be hoisted into the air on the shoulders of Juan Valdez. And there she was, spread eagle, for the entire crowd to see. And then, of course, that launched into the notorious mid-air transfer. It was a tricky procedure, one such that there had been occasions when the outcome was something that was considered a little bit more than risque. In fact, the troupe was invited not to appear in about 6 southern states where standards of morality were a little stricter than they were in Chapel Hill. But even in Chapel Hill, we had to worry about not running afoul of some of the local ordinances. But I was very circumspect in my editing of the tape, as I'm sure you'll see. My films were never X-rated. I never submitted them as rating point, you understand.
There was a particular trick called the mid-air transfer that caused quite a storm. Do you want to talk about that?
I would really like to see that, if possible.
Well, I think as most people understand, the Raviolis were highly sexualized in an era when that sort of thing was frowned upon. The Raviolis, interesting and ironically enough, were almost all virgins at the time these performances were taking place. But
Almost?
I myself was rather experienced.
Oh, okay.
But back to your question, the trick that probably was most controversial was the mid-air transfer. Perhaps you could describe what happened in the mid-air transfer.
Yeah. Wow. The mid-air transfer, you have to understand, at the time the Raviolis were performing, the term sexual fluidity had not been invented, much less understood. But suffice it to say, the Raviolis, just as they had no country to define them, they were children of the world, and they believed that everybody had the equal right to touch everybody else.
The Raviolis existed in a state of nature. That's what people don't seem to understand. There were no moral absolutes.
On a good night after a show, Wild Abdul, after he had his kibbles, he would spend an hour and a half grooming me.
With his tongue.
Well, if need be.
Moldavia, Moldavia, Moldavia. Moldavia, Moldavia, Moldavia. Moldavia, Moldavia, Moldavia. Moldavia, Moldavia, Moldavia. Come on, let's go. Let's go just a little further here, and you'll see our family room on the right. This is where we spent most of our time.
I had no idea you had so much square feet. That had to be the shower right there.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of water pressure, really.
Abdul, tell me about that. What is that? What is that?
I do not believe this. I wrote that when I was 12 years old.
You didn't know how to write?
That was Abdul plus Bernice.
Okay. Who's Bernice?
My cousin, Bernice.
Oh.
This is really emotional for me. You know how I got started with the raviolis. I actually hiked down. I was hiking down for a hot dog at the squeeze box, and there was somebody down there with a bootleg tape of the Flying Raviolis. And this was before I became a member, and I never came back up the mountain.
Is this the first time you've been back?
Oh yeah. I knew that was the life I wanted, the life I dreamed of my whole life, and there it was right in front of me. I knew I had to come to America.
Has this place changed since you were a boy?
Very little, very little.
You know, you have. You talk.
I learned American.
Yeah, that's good. You talk good.
Can you tell us about what precipitated the group's breakup?
Let me take a shot at that.
I'm sure you have your version. I
Well,
have mine.
At bottom, I think there were creative differences. There were artistic conflicts that I think created a schism that was that ultimately proved to be something that we couldn't get beyond. I think
Steven Spielberg and
I were really interested in the aesthetic. We were indifferent to money making and that kind of thing, and my friend here was more interested in commercializing what we were doing. He was not averse to sensationalizing our performances.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not sure exactly where all this is coming from. Two basic things happened that led to the end. One is we were supposed to be a democracy. Everybody was supposed to have a voice, except of course Ethel and Wild Abdul. But the rest of us were supposed to have an equal voice in this thing. And as it was originally conceived, everybody would take equal risks. I don't know if you realize how dangerous these tricks were and the physical peril. After the Raviolis, I was in the rodeo for 6 years. But the rodeo, bull riding, did not compare to the physical risk taken as a ravioli. But unfortunately, I was taking all the risk. And Chase and Sanborn, they could talk about, well, we're artistes. You just jump, you know. And honestly,
You don't want to underestimate the contributions of the guys at the bottom of the pyramid.
that was Abdul. That was you. Oh, what was your great contribution? This walk, doing this.
That was a signature move.
I know, but how long did it take you to think of putting an ace bandage around your head?
All right. Well,
I'm sorry.
The
This
wounds are still.
This is opening up some very dark
seeping.
places.
So there were artistic differences,
Oh.
and there were also some problems with the business aspect of things. It got to the point where we were so big, and the money was so big, that we kind of lost touch with each other. You know, each of us sort of was his own corporation. We couldn't communicate with each other. Our lawyers talked to each other. There was litigation. I'm happy to say that there isn't any anymore. Only one case I think is ongoing that involved the rights to the Raviolis theme song. You may remember Da 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 Da, which I wrote back in the sixth grade.
No. I brought that to the band. I brought that to the band. I'm sorry. You believe what you want to believe, but this is almost too much. I almost feel like we're breaking up again.
Even with the discovery of the Dalton Super 8 and 4 of the 5 raviolis, there is still mystery to be uncovered.
I don't see how anything that was such a rocket ship as the raviolis could really have lasted that long. I mean, this was right after man landed on the moon, and haven't been back for 50 years.
Well, the Raviolis were the logical extension of the culmination of the space race in a very real sense. And I don't think we've ever seen anything like them since. They belong to the ages now.
Wow. One of the signature elements of this group was their costuming. They chose to cover the female while exposing the male torso. Revolutionary in its day.
And the grand finale trick, which had, not only had it never been seen before, it had never been done before. Without any practice or preparation on the spot, Chase created the trick. He told Wild Abdul where to stand. He told me to leap to the top of Wild Abdul's shoulders. Wild Abdul did not understand. He had not trained for this. He hadn't been given any treats. But when Chase pointed that gun at his head and then pointed through the hula hoop, Wild Abdul knew what to do. I wasn't so sure. But just the sheer spontaneity of perhaps one of the greatest tricks in history made me think, this is it. Leave while we're on top. I think I need to go to a doctor. I think I'm hurt. And I never did another stunt again, aside from the rodeo stint. And now, today, thanks to, in part, the small fortune I had saved from the ravioli days, I have become a spokesperson for reverse mortgage, and I stand behind that. I have used it any number of times to prolong whatever it is I do.
Well, there's not much to tell. As was mentioned a few minutes ago, after composing the Raviolis theme song,
Right.
I decided to make a career of songwriting in Nashville, which I did. You probably remember some of my songs. Ahab, Arab, You Light Up My Life, and Hey Jude.
what is the cultural significance of the film? It's a testimony to a moment in history. You remember the year 1972 very well. It was a year of Watergate. It was a year that Jesse Helms was first elected senator from North Carolina, and so it's for the benefit of you, our 21st century audience, that this is now there for posterity.
Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na.
Sanborn did not write the theme song for the Raviolis. Sanborn doesn't even know the words to the theme song. It's na 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 na, and he was going da 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 da. He lied.